Good afternoon or evening, depending on where you are. We are certified coaches of the ULA framework, and we're here with you tonight to talk to you about overcoming obstacles and how we do it. So, first of all, sharing with us tonight is Cindy DeMint. And after being a stay at home mom for 18 years, she went back into the workplace and used her skills as a customer service manager. She knows what it's like to reinvent herself, and she has a passion for helping women navigate the changes that come in life after reaching 40. She also encourages her current clients to live their best lives by dreaming big, setting goals, and staying accountable. Cindy, tell us how you overcome obstacles.
Thank you, Kevin. I want to talk tonight about focus. That's an obstacle that I tend to have. We call it shiny object syndrome or squirrel. You know, you see something and this catches your attention and this catches your attention. And looking through the book, ULA for Christians, I was caught by something in there that says, be a laser, not a flashlight. I tend to be a flashlight, and I'm just honest about that. In 2017, I talked about this in an earlier broadcast I was on. 2017, I came home. I was going to start my blog. Actually, it happened in late 2016, but I was home, for about 8 months in 17. I was going to start my blog, build a website, get all this done. And I would get one thing going. And when it got to going fairly well, I'd start something else. And then I'd start something else. And before I knew what was going on, I had so many things going that nothing was going. And I know you know what I'm talking about. You have so many irons in the fire that nothing's getting your attention. Or if it gets your attention, it gets this much. And then you move to the next thing. So I went back to work as a customer service manager and worked a couple of years in that job. And now I'm home again. I started a small business that was a stopgap for me until coaching came along. Coaching is what I always wanted to do. I wanted to help people for years. And so this opportunity came along and I jumped at it. Well, I found myself in August of this year being a flashlight again. That laser focus was gone. I was focusing on my coaching to a point, and then I was focusing on getting my website built. Someone's building it for me, but I'm helping her. And then I would focus on training, and then, oh, well, wait, I've got a craft because my daughter and I have a little side craft business. Oh, wait a minute, I need other kind of training. And, oh, wait, I'm a writer. I've got to write. Well, you see, I was doing this when I needed to be doing this. So my focus should have been on my coaching and coach training and on my website, because I can't relaunch my blog until I relaunch my website. So writing's important, but my coaching and my website were the two most important. But, all of them were good things. So the early part of September, I got sick. And I got sick. I was down for about 2 weeks. I couldn't do anything. I was that sick. I literally went from my bed to my recliner. That was it. I was so sick. And during that time, at first, I couldn't think about anything, nothing. Everything went to the side. I wasn't doing anything. I had no energy to read. I had no energy to look at my computer. I didn't do any training. I did nothing. Even the girl, I came in here one night and just laid like this and talked to the girl about my website. It was all I could do to sit here. It was so bad. So, the Lord has a sense of humor, and he knew I needed to focus. And so he brought me back to that, brought me back to my focus. And it was so ironic. After about 2.5 weeks of being sick, I'd been trying to figure out the tagline for my blog. I also needed to figure out, yes, I want to work with women, but I have management experience. I've always wanted to work with managers and teach them how to lead their people and manage the work. That's my tagline with my coaching business as far as management. That was what I wanted to do. And it was like the Lord opened up my little brain and all these ideas came into my head one day. And I just started writing them down. And I realized it woke me up and made me realize that because I had not been focusing on one or two things and had spread my focus out so far, or what I thought was focus, I had become that flashlight that I couldn't, these ideas wouldn't come to me. Why would they? Why would they come to me? Because I wasn't focusing on anything. I was just pinging here, there, and everywhere, like that little squirrel out in the yard that, hey, this has got my attention and this has got my attention. So I've been on here a couple of times and I always give you a challenge. And my challenge to you tonight is to back up and look at what you're focusing on. Are you a flashlight or are you a laser beam? And if you're being that flashlight, you need to let something go. But I'm going to caution you, because when you start letting things go, you may let too much go and you may lose your motivation. So it's a balance. It's a fine line you've got to walk, and it's a balancing act. So make sure that you're only focusing on one or two things. Be that laser beam. Keep your motivation there and let the other things, even if they're good, they may be great things. Your church may be asking you to do something. Your spouse may be wanting you to do something. Your children may be needing you to do something, but you know what? They can take care of themselves better than they act like they can. So back up and say, Mama's got to do this. Back up and say, sweetheart, I have got to do this. This is my focus. If you want that wonderful vacation that this job can afford us, if you want this special thing that this job can afford us, let me back up. Let me put my focus on what it needs to be. Give me a little bit of time and we'll get this done. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Excellent advice. I know that when I have too many irons in the fire, I end up burning my hand.
Yes.
Every time. So I have to learn how to focus. All right. Our next coach tonight is Debbie Rothy. She's got 22 years of industry experience leading teams and building constructive cultures, and also coaching leaders and employees to be the best version of themselves. She is a high energy coach, as you're going to find out, who's passionate about helping other people. So Debbie, let's hear what you have to say.
Thank you, Kevin, for the introduction. Yes, so for my blocker, I'm going to talk about fear. For me, fear is one of the first blockers that shows up for me, and then I'll get scattered in other areas, and I can really relate to what Cindy was talking about with focus. And I think part of that is because I'm procrastinating because of fear. When one of my ULA one, my big goal this year in 2020 was to launch my coaching business. And when I had that realization that that was the one thing I had to focus on, I noticed that I hesitated quite a bit with, I would stop myself and I would overthink things. I'm a strategic thinker. And so I would be thinking about all the little things I had to put in place, and found myself obsessed a little bit with perfection. And really the root cause of that was because I was afraid that I would launch my business and do something wrong, start my website and make a mistake, and not just make a mistake, but make a mistake that I couldn't recover from. Like, if I didn't build my brand right, would I be able to go back and make it better? So I would get stuck in my head and really afraid to take the steps I needed to move things forward. One of the great things about the ULA framework, there were lots of things about fear in how to obliterate that blocker. And so the ready, set, go process of really, the first step is being aware, that awareness of what is stopping me. And so one of the things that I did is when I was working at my ULA one, is I would go through and I would document, journal just briefly, where I was, what am I delaying, what am I procrastinating, and try to understand why, and journal that self-talk. And that awareness is really important if you want to move past a blocker. So I had that awareness of, well, shoot, I'm stopping because I'm afraid. And so that's like, okay, this is what's happening, that awareness of what is happening. Then the next step is the setting it in its place. And that's essentially you're looking at your pros and your cons. So what is obviously the con of giving into that fear? And for me, I was thinking, well, if I give into this, I'll never launch this business and I'll just continue to be frustrated because it's not perfect. So looking at that con and understanding that, like, this is what you are saying is okay. If I give into this fear, I'm not going to be able to have the impact on the lives that I want to have. And so, and then there is what is the pro of like obliterating through it? Like, what if I overcome this fear? What's the benefit? So you think about, one way to think about that is the pay value. That pay value has to be something worth going after. So thinking, well, if I move past this blocker, I'll launch my business. I, have this whole purpose I'm living, and everything will align, and I'll be able to positively impact lives and make, other people's lives better. I'll be happier, more fulfilled. And so looking at those two, okay, so it's clearly worth it to obliterate through it. But okay, that's great. How do you move past fear? How do you just stop being afraid? And one of the tips in the ULA framework that I like is I think it was like 20 seconds of courage, of just thinking of, can you just do something like fast without overthinking it, and just make it happen even if it's not perfect. And so I would try to do those things. And one of my mantras was, okay, I was imagining that I was on a diving board, ready to dive, into a pool. And I would say, okay, 1, 2, 3, jump. And I would close my eyes, and then I would go do the thing that I wanted to go and do, whether it was launch my website. Okay, start the Facebook page. Okay, just schedule the webinar, even if you're not sure if you're ready, just go and do those things. And so I think about that, and that closing my eyes and jump, I think that's like a blind courage almost of, okay, there's different types of courage that you can have. And sometimes just starting running really fast and imagining running and jumping into the water off of a high cliff was the one thing that I'd put in my brain, and then just go do it. So for me, that's a strategy, working past fear. But a little bit deeper than that is, I think that fear can sometimes translate into self-sabotage. And you really need to examine that inner voice of what is driving that fear. There's a belief that's driving that behavior. And so, having these strategies, Race, Set, Go is great. But if you can get at that root cause of that fear, and that's what I would work on. So that's what the journaling of the self-talk helped me identify. What am I telling myself? What lies am I telling myself? Or what am I believing that is holding me back? And that is deep in your subconscious mind, and that's where affirmations work. So identifying your current self-talk and then writing an affirmation that is the opposite of that current negative self-talk that's holding you back. So those are some strategies. And it has been 4 months since I've launched my business. I've hit over 100 followers and on Facebook, and I've have coaching clients, and it's just amazing. And so that's another thing I recommend is, when you do obliterate your blockers, document your successes and what you did to cause it, because chances are it'll come up again. It'll sneak up on you in the future. And if you have that journaled of, oh, but look at what I've done in the past, this is what worked for me in the past, then that can help you to continue to move forward when these blockers sneak up.
That's great. Unfortunately, we seem to be having some technical difficulties that we haven't had so far in this series.
Yeah, it looks like Kevin's moving in and out on us.
So if you were not able to hear me before, are you able to hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So as I speak from the pitch dark room, evidently, I was just saying I should never have titled this episode Overcoming Obstacles because I've had nothing but problems with this episode for some reason. Save the absolute joy of having all of you join me. So I apologize for our technical difficulties. You can still see these beautiful ladies. You certainly don't have to see me, and you're probably better off for that. Mm-hmm. So our next coach, and thank you, Debbie, for sharing. Our next coach is actually a team of coaches, and they are Colette Smith-Pickard and Gina Van Bogernen. Now, Colette is an elementary school teacher, and you may be able to see that she is actually, looks like she might even be in a classroom. I don't know where they are, but she is an elementary school teacher. And Gina is a very good friend of hers. And they both believe that struggles are not meant to be wasted. In each step of each of the struggles, there are lessons to be learned and shared with others. And they would like to share with you tonight how they've overcome some of their struggles and obstacles. So if you can, ladies, you can take it away.
Thank you. So Debbie, we are going to kind of spin off your same thing, fear. And me and Colette have been working together for March, April, kind of after after COVID hit. Mm-hmm. So we're both coaches here in Arizona, and I had reached out to her and said, hey, let's team up. And we decided to put a webinar on together before we had ever even meet in person. Mm-hmm. And it was something we were both scared to death to do. So what we did was we're constantly pushing each other and bouncing ideas off of each other. And we created our own Facebook page where we just did our own webinar that only we could see.
It was one of these, but it was just the two of us. And we were so afraid. And I was like, nobody could see us. Nobody knows this group is here. Yeah. I go, well, maybe my mom knows it's here, but that's it.
But, the thing that we both have learned through doing this process, for one, is just having somebody else, like another coach or somebody accountable to kind of bounce ideas off of, to push you out of your comfort zone, because that's where, we have both grown so much doing these webinars together. Pushing us to do it, because a lot of times we're also, sabotaging ourselves because we're trying to make everything so perfect. We want to look perfect, and we want our websites, like kind of like what you said, we want everything to be perfect. And when people show up to our webinar, we don't want to mess up. But I've noticed in the webinars that we've done, my favorite parts of the webinar is when we mess up.
Yeah.
Like the last webinar, she asked me a question and I was looking at the comments and she's like, Gina, and I'm like, oh, I didn't pay attention, but it was fun and it was funny, and that's what makes us vulnerable, and it makes it fun,
and it's more real,
right? And people can really relate. One of the things that Dave always says is it's not about you. And every time I go in to do a Facebook Live or any type of webinar, I'm really scared, and I can feel my voice shaking, and I do the countdown, and it takes me a couple tries, but I always remind myself, it's not about me. It's not about me. It's not about me. Yeah. And I think that makes it a little bit easier. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I'm going to jump off of all of you guys because I think we're all in the same boat, having the training that we've all had together and going through this whole process together, and not just once, but daily and monthly and everything together. I think the biggest part of this whole community is having each other and being able to do these kinds of things together, being able to support each other. Not once have we been in one of these groups and heard, oh my gosh, Colette, you were awful. We're just there to support each other. And that's what's going to get you past the self-sabotage and the fear and the, Cindy, what did you talk about? The focus, right? Mm-hmm. So because I can relate to all of you so far. I totally have done the focus thing where I've been doing too much of one thing, whether it's too much of focusing on my family and then my coaching goes back here, or too much focusing on my oils and then my coaching goes back here, or it's all coaching and then everything else falls to pieces. But what we've learned is that you have to balance all of those areas, and it's not just a one and done thing. It's all the time. It's a lifestyle, just like some of those other things are. It's a lifestyle that you have to learn to do. And even though Gina and I have known each other but haven't known each other that long, it's been such a huge help in our relationship with each other and our process and growing in this whole journey. So, I mean, for that, I'm grateful for her especially, and then to have you guys as well to do all of this. So, yeah, those are my thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's so awesome because we really have so much to offer people. And I think when we get afraid of what everyone's going to think about us, it stops us dead in our tracks.
Yeah.
And I think if we take that off of the table and stop worrying about the outcome of what we're going to say, instead, like, you know, a lot of people might see these webinars or these videos right when they need to see it and be able to reach out to, you know, our ULA community. So when we take ourselves out of the equation and stop worrying about what everyone's going to think and just think, someone might think this is amazing.
Yeah.
It changes our mindset, and it makes it so much easier to come on and make ourselves vulnerable in front of people and share the messages that we have to share.
Yeah. I mean, we've only done one real like live webinar together, but we're already planning the next one and planning it to be less scripted and more coffee talk type or tea talk or something, you know, just to make it more fun and just so you can see who we are as opposed to just reading from the script. We've done that and we're going to push past it and overcome that obstacle and make it our own. So, yeah.
So
that's it.
That's what we got.
Thank you much, ladies. We certainly appreciate both of you sharing with us. And everybody has a little bit of that fear and lack of focus, I think, as we first started. But reading a book like this, I know you can't see it, the ULA, Find Balance in an Unbalanced World, like the book that Cindy showed earlier, talks about all these blockers that we're talking about tonight. So we will leave a link for that book. Thank you, Cindy, for showing that. We will leave a link for that book in the comments section of this presentation so that you can get one for yourself and be sure and read that because there are some awesome lessons to be learned. Now, before we go tonight, we want to also introduce you to Coach Mona. And Coach Mona is going to first, if you'll tell us a little bit about yourself, because this is your first time on one of our broadcasts, and then tell us about how you overcome obstacles all the time when you reach your goal.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Kevin. I'm so excited to be a part of this community and to continue learning from everybody here. Am I okay to talk? Yes,
Yeah.
okay. Right. I think you're lagging in the photo, that's all.
Yes.
So yeah, my name is Mona. I am an ULA coach, and I am so proud and so excited just to be able to say that out loud, because it took me about probably like 2-3 weeks before I was able to say, hey guys, you know what? I'm an ULA coach. Because I just didn't feel like I had the confidence to just go out and say it. So to be able to be here with you guys and to be able to just say it out loud, it feels good and it feels like home. It's my background is I have a nursing degree, so I'm a registered nurse. I've been working as a masseuse. I've been working as a personal trainer. I've been working with the awesome essential oils, and you know, my life has always been about not just helping people. That's how it started, but it continued into the business where I'm at now, where I actually work in amusement parks with where amazingly enough, I still help people, but I help them grow professionally, which then helps them grow personally. And I'm super excited to have this framework of ULA that I can implement not only with my staff when I go to work, but also with my family. And I can so relate to what you were saying before, Debbie, about the fear. And to be honest, yesterday was a day when I sat down with my husband and our 3 teenage children, and we literally spent a whole day just talking about fear. Like, what kind of fears are we facing in our lives? What kind of fears are actually relevant? And, you know, not the fight or flight fear, because we had an incident where our neighbor or our landlady where we are here, she got bitten by a dog. So it was like, that was real fear. That's fight or flight fear. But what other fears do we have in our lives that are kind of holding us back? And are they really helping us? And so we had a whole day where we just dug in. And what I had realized prior to that conversation, which kind of led me to initiate this conversation, is that all of the goals that I'd set for myself, they were in, especially within my growing my ULA business, were very small, achievable goals. And I thought I was being brave because I was doing, you know, I was sharing things here, and I was being live on Facebook and Instagram, and I explained it to my husband. It's like, it's as if training for a marathon and you're just running a mile every day. Like, that's what I was doing. I was running a mile and I was so happy, and I was giving myself pats on the back. Good job, Mona. You know, you ticked those oranges. Good job. But really, my fear was holding me back to actually go and do those 20 seconds of courage, where I jumped in and I said, okay, you know, friend, I want to do a webinar or a workshop with you and your group of friends. And we're coming towards the end of 2020. And I know you are working with your team to prepare them for 2021. And I want to be a part of that. Can we set something up for November? And I did it. And the thing is, like, the crazy thing is as well, is that I have a list of ideas. So it's like Dr. Dave and Dr. Troy says, you know what to do. You just have to go and do it. So kind of wrapping it up, after hours of talking with my family yesterday, I asked them, I have a 15-year-old, a 17-year-old on Saturday, and a 19-year-old. And I was like, okay, so what is the antidote to fear? What is it that, you know, what is the cure? And we came to one conclusion. It's action. It's moving into action, taking action. I want to run a marathon. I cannot continue running 1 mile a day. I have to increase. So today we went for an 8-mile, you know, hike up and down the hills of, you know, Austin, Texas. That works. My husband wants to, he wants to learn how to sail a sailboat, but we can't just buy a dinghy and, you know, start rowing around the shore. Like, we actually have to learn how to sail. So we are now challenging each other. So I have my family as my accountability partners, and we are challenging each other, not just to take those small steps. I do 1 mile runs sometimes just to rest my legs, but it's challenging each other to take those big leaps, to actually go out there and, you know, buy those big juicy oranges that will take you that step closer to your goal. And that's my big one, big one for the week. And it was amazing. It was hard because you really had to dig in deep to those fears that had been there for years and years and years, address them, and then say, you know what, the only way to get past it is move into action. And that's what we're going to do.
That's great, Mona. Thank you so much for sharing that perspective. You know, another blocker is self-sabotage. And it sounds like you might have actually set your goals so that you could always reach them, but maybe you were sabotaging yourself from doing the great things that you could really accomplish.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's funny because when I'm with my staff, like I teach my staff, because a lot of my staff are high school kids, because they work in amusement parks, and the amusement park is usually their first job. So and I encourage them. I said, you have to fail. You have to fail to succeed. But I guess I'm just not very good at taking my own advice.
It's always the most difficult, isn't it?
It kind of is,
Yeah.
I say to them, you know what to do, and now you go and do it. But there's a gap, so we need to close that knowing doing gap.
That's right.
And they do during the season with me. They come in super quiet and shy, and then I say they come in little cocoons, and then by the time they're finished, they're like on the microphone, hey, we got a winner, who's going to be my next? And they are like loud, and, they're entrepreneurs because they've actually been trained how to run their mini business on the games where they're at. So I love that process, and I can't wait to implement that, cocoon to butterfly process with, my clients in ULA as well.
That's an awesome example. Well, thank you again for sharing, Mona, and thank all of you for sharing today. We certainly enjoyed hearing from you. I know I am inspired to go overcome my own obstacles and figure out what's wrong with my computer tonight. So we are going to close, but before we close, just let me say one more time, be sure to get a copy of ULA, Find Balance in an Unbalanced World, and we'll leave a link here for you in the comments so that you can easily find that. Everyone have a great day or a great evening, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye, everybody.